Happy Sunday, everyone. I hope you are having an awesome and amazing and fabulous day today. I am here with you, RK, and I am with Sacred Para. I am really excited to be able to have this conversation with you on this day. As you know, I usually have my IG Live podcasts on the weekend. Not always on Sunday, so this may be a little bit of a different day for you, but nonetheless, I have an awesome and amazing guest that I will be talking to and chatting about play therapy and her field of work and how it fits into play. So I'm glad that you're with me on this Sunday, and I do hope that you enjoyed. Hi, House of Akalon, thank you for joining. Hi, John H. Maxwell, thank you for joining. Without further ado, I'm going to call her in so that we can start talking about play therapy. As many of you know, all adults need to engage in play. Hi, Coach Play. Thank you so much for joining. I was just trying to invite you in, sis. Thank you so much. Hi, how are you?
Hello, I'm great. How are you?
Doing good. It's so good to see you on here. I'm going to increase my volume. It is so good to see you. This is our first time meeting.
It is.
Yes. I reached out to you and I saw your page. I think you just have such a wonderful and vibrant personality. I said, I have to contact you and get us in conversation about play therapy.
Indeed. I am
How's your day going today?
It's going okay. I'm right outside of Washington, D.C., and the pollen is out of control. And so I am battling that today. But it's beautiful outside. I just won't go out there right now. Make this thing worse.
I understand. We have the same thing here. We're in Kentucky, the Bluegrass State, and I'm telling you, it doesn't quite feel like spring just yet. And anytime we do get that spring, it gets, collided by the winter breeze. So,
oh my gosh, we have these trees that tourists come from all over the world to come see. And my husband and I are both from North Carolina, and we cannot for the life of ourselves understand why everybody's just coming for trees. We both struggle with allergies. And so every year we're like, why is everyone coming? It's just a snotty mess.
It's the experience. It's the experience of it, and to be able to get into nature somewhere else outside your house.
Well,
we travel for it. Well, I want to thank you again for joining with me today. You have an amazing field of work, and I want to make sure that I get it correct. You have a field of work in S.E.L, correct?
Yes.
When I saw
I
this, my first time ever seeing it, could you explain that to us and what S.E.L breaks down into?
Yeah, absolutely. So S.E.L is social and emotional learning. That's what it stands for, social and emotional learning. And right now it's a big push in schools because of the pandemic that we were in and how we have, how our young people have struggled. Hi, Erica. Hi, Kyoko. Our young people are struggling with our social issues and definitely connecting with and coping with their own emotions. So social and emotional learning was coined, well, I don't know if it was coined by CASEL, but there's a group called CASEL. And this CASEL organization has put forth different, CASEL has put together research on social and emotional learning. And so I deal with that. However, instead of working directly with students, a lot of my social and emotional wellness work is with the actual educators in the building. And I use the word educators because it's not just the teachers, it's also the school leaders, it's also the anyone, the front desk staff, anyone who comes in contact with young people and anyone who works within the walls of a school. And so I don't know how far you want me to go into this.
Oh, no, please expand.
Yeah, so when social and emotional learning, the idea of teaching it explicitly in schools happened, I feel like we missed a step. it's crucial that young people are given tools to deal with their social and emotional wellness. But we skipped a step because we assumed that all adults that come in contact with young people are in a position where they can do that, where they can support young people in that way. And what we are finding is that the emotional weight of education, the emotional weight of teaching, served as a barrier, and can serve as a barrier for many teachers in doing the S.E.L work in the classroom. And so my job is I support the educator. I was a teacher for many years, a classroom-based teacher. My education work actually started in the Department of Juvenile Services, where young people would go waiting court dates, waiting for placement into group homes, that type of deal. Wow. And then I went from that work. I was there for about maybe 3.5 years. Went from that work into public school. And I like to say well, people think that it was like two spectrums. Like I was at the end of the spectrum with working with Department of Juvenile Services, and then I left and went to public school, but it was a visual and performing arts program where the students auditioned to get into the program from all across the county. And so people were like, oh, you worked on both spectrums. And I was like, yes, but it was still the same students, just different circumstances. And so a lot of my work comes from my work now comes from my work when I was in the classroom and dealing with the emotional weight of education, dealing with the secondary trauma that a lot of students, the secondary trauma that from helping other students who are experiencing trauma comes. So there's that. And so one of the things that I do, and one of the tenets of the work that I do is play. As adults, we have disconnected from our sense of play in a lot of ways. We hit an imaginary line somewhere, and all of a sudden we believe that it's just for children and it has no merit, or we look at it in a different way. So getting educators to really lean into that, to lean into their creative side through storytelling and through memoir writing, because that was one of the ways that I was healed from some of the trauma that I experienced.
See, that is amazing to me. I shared with you briefly in a comment that I was a teacher at one time in the public school system. I started off as a substitute teacher. And I've been wearing a lot of different hats in my years, and one of them was being a teacher. And it is a lot of weight. I don't think that and that was before the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
That was way before the pandemic. It was already a lot of weight. I witnessed a teacher go from teaching 5th grade to the following year going into teaching 2nd grade because she said it was just too much on her. She thought that she could handle it. I mean, it was the same school. You're seeing pretty much the same kids all the time, but the weight of their emotions was different. The way that kids, and when we talk about the abuse that children do get, and children do, so it doesn't minimize what children go through. Right. But hurt people. Yeah. And so if a child is hurt, they can really express that in very violent and volatile ways. And it doesn't always have to be throwing a chair, although sometimes that does happen, especially when you're going into your more learning behavioral classes. They may end up throwing a chair or, or things of that nature. But, the emotions that come out of them comes out in ways that could just be very nasty in attitude, or them not receiving, you have all this love to give and you see the potential that they have and you want them to feel that from you, and them not receiving it can be traumatic as well.
Yes, it could absolutely. But I think that's what makes social and emotional learning and explicitly teaching that so important, because a lot of times we look at young people as just smaller adults, and that is a fallacy. That is a complete fallacy. They don't know how to handle emotions. They don't know how to handle it in a healthy way and channel it in a healthy way. And so that's when we started seeing, for the most part, of course, there are outliers in this, but for the most part, that's where we're seeing a breakdown in behavior in classrooms, is this lack of teaching how to deal with disappointment,
Yes.
how to deal with anger, how to not channel it in a physical way,
Yes.
putting a name to it, because that's the very first step, putting a name to what I'm feeling, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
And when I
Anytime
know,
that the main time that you see um, students and children and youth and even adults, even us as adults, being able to put a name to our emotions is when we go to counseling, when we
yeah,
go to therapy.
right,
Then they bring out the
right,
smiley sheets and the different faces, and how do you feel right here? And
right,
this is actually a particular or a specific emotion, a specific label that goes with it.
mm-hmm.
But if you don't attend counseling, you don't attend therapy sessions, you're not going to know what you're battling with all the time. Especially you're just
Yeah,
like shoving it back in his daily life. I'm not going to put a name on it.
yeah, and I think, again, that's where we kind of lost um, the opportunity when we first started in introducing S.E.L to schools. We assumed that all educators were emotionally well, and
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's not the case. And that is not saying that I will speak for myself. I was not emotionally well. I speak a lot in my work about ACEs, and that, I don't know if you know what ACEs are, but they are adverse
Could
childhood
you?
experiences. And
Okay.
so, as adults, our ACEs tend to color how we move through the world. And so, as educators, when we have experienced ACEs in our childhood, when we bring that to the classroom,
We
right?
do.
We bring our full selves to the classroom. And so, um, if we come across a young person who is dealing with, say, homelessness, or maybe even food scarcity or something like that, and we have dealt with it as a child, then our propensity to have compassion fatigue or develop secondary trauma gets even higher.
Ooh.
And so, what my goal is, as an educational consultant, because I wear many hats as well, but as an educational consultant, is to come in and help the adults in this space develop a healthy connection with their emotions, especially as they are supporting young people who are dealing with a lot of emotions.
Oh my goodness. This is a little bit off subject, but what you just said brought into my own memory of being in the school system. Of course, I was in social work for a portion of time, and I had to go to, well, for my graduate degree, so I had to do internships. And I just recall hearing in conversation with other teachers, other adults, them saying, well, we're going to have to contact the social worker because I really do think this child is going through abuse. And it could be something as simple as, like, maybe a child said that, before they went to bed, their dad laid in the bed with them.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say that, you're talking about ACEs. If you have someone that may have suffered abuse themselves, and it may have been completely
Yeah.
innocent,
Yeah.
just daddy laying in the
Yeah.
bed with his baby girl or his baby boy,
Yeah.
and it wasn't in any kind of sexual way, anything of that nature. But if you yourself, as the adult, dealt with any kind of abuse, you can easily take that in a very negative way and say, I think something's going on,
Yeah.
even though something may
Yeah.
not. And you see so many children, go through even more trauma or more situations that they really shouldn't, because we as the adult are not healed, and we don't
Yes.
recognize that.
Yes.
And we think
Yes.
that we're going into it whole, and we're not.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And to take that even
Mm.
one step further, I know when I was in the public school system, there were several times where I had to, again, contact. So we were mandatory reporters, and so for anyone who's watching who doesn't understand that, as teachers, we are mandated. And I don't know if every state is this way, but I definitely know Maryland is this way. We are mandated to contact authorities when we think that anything untoward is happening to a child, if there's any kind of abuse, if there's mental, physical, any of that going on, we are mandated to report. So if a child comes to us and says anything, we have to tell.
Yeah.
And so because of my background and some of the situations that I found myself in as a young person, I would I would go through the motions, but afterwards you're left with what now? Because it's out of your hands. And so every teacher that I know, every single one of them, started education from a place of empathy. They're very empathetic people. They want to help. I don't know one person who went into education and said, I don't like kids, I'm going to be a teacher. No, no one ever did that. Over the years, maybe they have experienced trauma and have built up a wall, which again is something that I help teachers deal with, but no one comes into it with that. And so when you are faced with situations where you have to mandatory report and then back up and you have nothing else to do with it, there's no way that I know personally, I felt like I can't help, I'm not helping. I reported, and now what? That created a lot of anxiety inside of me. That created a situation where, for weeks, definitely over weekends, I am obsessed and consumed with thoughts of this child and thoughts of this situation. Again, this is what I'm talking about. One of the things I'm talking about when I talk about the emotional weight of teaching. And it's something that people don't really talk about a whole lot. And there's so many other ways, we're just talking about, just had another school shooting, a school massacre. And that lives in the hearts of every teacher, whether they are 5 miles up the road or 5,000 miles away. It lives in the hearts of teachers. And so how can we be effective and stay grounded and stay, again, effective as educators if we don't address this?
I agree so much. And I'm glad that you are breaking this down for us in the way that you are, because at some point in time, all of us as adults have had a teacher. If we ourselves were not teachers, we've been in a classroom, we've had teachers. And if we've never been in the position of being a teacher, you can really only see it from your own point of view.
Right.
So especially if you had teachers that, if you had a teacher that you really didn't care for, now you may say, oh, I don't like teachers. Teachers, they're always trying to give you assignments. They don't really see you as a student and what you're going through. And it's very easy to look at them one-dimensionally and not see us as humans, and not see us, just like you said, as the person who goes home and feels the weight and the burden of either having to report a situation, or seeing a student who has potential and doesn't see it in themselves, or seeing a student who is going through a harder time than what they need to, or even seeing students that shine really bright and may not have access to the resources that they need so they can go to a better school, a better location. Like there are some kids that they're there just because of the zip code. But those kids need to be at a different school where they can really shine and be in all the classes that they can ace at and really, just continue to soar. But the resources aren't there. And then there's some kids that do really, really good and they rub it in other kids' faces. How do I balance that? How do I get this kid to be the best that they are, but not try to throw it? And so you're going home with all that weight.
Yeah, and that is the teacher. You brought up the teacher that may have not been the most beloved with students, but that's not even to speak of the most beloved teachers, because those are the ones who students confide in. Those are the ones who students come during lunch breaks and they are having lunch with them. They spend the most time with them. Those are the teachers a lot of times who do extracurricular activities and, are heads of extracurricular activities. And so they see the students more often and they get more connected to them and their family. And so that was me. That was me. I was that.
And I can see that in you. I think that's why I gravitated to you so much. I've had like 5 teachers, and 2 of them I still keep in touch with to this day, that really did touch my heart. And I just really do feel that warmth with you. Like, I could name them all. Miss McGee, Miss Powell, Miss White,
Oh, I hated Miss Powell
Miss
too.
Raquel. And then I had a teacher that was a former nun, Miss Ann. And I just feel that warmth with you,
Okay.
that you are definitely someone who will give a student the benefit of the doubt, that's willing to see all dimensions of who they are. And you are someone who sees not just where they're at right now, but the potential of what they have. And then you carry that with you. These aren't just your kids, these are your babies.
Yes.
And I really do. I feel that energy that comes
Oh,
from you.
thank
When I
you. Thank
watched you
you.
talk on your page, I was like, oh my God, like I just felt this loving spirit that comes from you. You get connected with your students. It's not just, okay, I'm going to teach this one semester and it's
Oh
new
no.
students for,
Oh no.
the 2023, 2024 school year. You're still wanting to track your students down, like, hey, how are you doing with that new
Oh,
teacher? How's that school
listen.
going? Yeah,
Listen.
that's what
Listen,
I
honey.
feel from you. That's what I feel from you. Like I said, I have a Miss Powell in my life who does that with me, and I got a Miss Raquel that does that with me. Rostel, Miss Rostel, they keep in touch with me. How many kids you got now? How are your kids doing? And you just feel that love of family that comes from you.
Yeah.
So
Oh, well, thank you.
that's why this meant so much to me
I'm gonna show
to
you
have you
something.
on here today.
I'm gonna show you something. I don't know if you can see that thing in the back. It's a
Yes,
unicorn. It's
yes,
a pillow in front of it, but it's a unicorn.
yes.
And the reason why I'm showing you that is that's what I call my students. They're my unicorns. And my phrase has always been, once mine, always mine. And as a matter of fact, I was a little behind getting on this live because a student contacted me wanting, needing some resources. And so I had, that comes first. That comes first.
Yes,
But,
yes.
but yeah, I think it's important. I think, so I taught theater. And I still teach theater. I teach it in college now, but I taught theater, and that gave me an even more opportunities to get to know students even better. I always say that teachers of the arts have this very beautiful opportunity with young people because of the nature of the arts themselves. Right? They
Yes.
require a sense of vulnerability. They require a sense of play, a sense of bringing that wall down.
Yes.
And as educators, we encourage that, because of the art form that we teach. We encourage that. And so we get this amazing opportunity, whether you teach them for a semester, a year, or like me, I taught them all 4 years. You get this amazing opportunity to see this growth in these young people. And I think, well, not just arts teachers in general, again, are not given the supports that they need. And because of that, that was a large reason why I ended up having to leave the classroom. I talk about the work that I do, but it's based in personal experience.
Yeah.
Dealing with compassion fatigue, dealing with burnout, dealing with secondary trauma. And those are 3 separate things. A lot of times we like to loop burnout as this umbrella term, but there's 3 separate things that happens. I know for myself, as of last month, March, I lost my 5th student. When I was in the classroom, I began losing them. I lost my 2nd one, and it was that 2nd one that broke me. It was that 2nd one that broke me.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And so I needed a way to heal. I needed a way to come to grips with all the things that I was feeling, because when I left the classroom, as a lot of teachers feel when they leave the classrooms, there's this humongous sense of guilt, right? Like we are abandoning our kids, we're abandoning our young people. And so dealing with that, dealing with grief, dealing with loss, dealing with anger even, at the system and at everything that is set up wrong that we can see from the inside. But I needed some sort of way to deal with that. And because I'm a theater artist, what I landed on was my art form. And so I wrote a solo show. I ended up writing a solo show and about my journey in and through education, dealing with compassion fatigue, healing from these things, but along the way, meeting some of the most amazing people, young people that I have met in my entire life. And so my solo show is in honor of them, of the ones that I've lost, of the ones who are still here and texting me for resources, but also to serve as a beacon for other educators that you can heal from this, that you can still be an amazing educator if that's what you need, that there are ways to, lack of a better word, heal. So
Yeah,
again,
I love that.
yeah.
I love that. I love that. You know, we talk a lot about, especially, it was, I told you, you know, when we scheduled this today, I said, I have church earlier and then we could do it afterwards.
Yes.
And I'm a believer of Christ. And I always tell people I'm not a Bible thumper. You know, God is a gentleman. He lets you come to him and he's there for you. And I feel like that's the same thing with me.
Yeah.
But as a believer, one of the things that's really important to me is being able to heal, being able to grow, being able to evolve.
Yes.
And I think that's where, of course, the compassion really does fit in. And I almost feel like our conversation is probably going to be about probably going to have like 2 sessions on this. I too, have spent time in theater. I was involved with 2 acting troupes in my undergraduate year, took playwriting courses, and went in for my MFT. Well, MFT was in counseling. I've gone to grad school 3 times. My MFA in writing and teaching, and I went in for playwriting, and currently have books online on Amazon for my plays. And I did plays at our former church, and then I did some pieces and sent them off, and you know, and won a few competitions and got a chance to see them act out. And one of the things that I got involved with plays and acting in 6th grade. My mother, you know, I wanted to be an actress. My mom was like, "Oh, let's go ahead, let's put you at YPAS." So I went to YPAS over the summer. And one of the things that I really did learn as a child who had suffered, you know, trauma in different situations and had dealt with abuse as well. And then not too much, you know, like from my mother, but just life period, you know, second husband my mother had and this and that. You know, life took place. One of the things that I enjoyed about acting though is that you get to channel your energy into a role. You get to channel your emotions into a role. And like you said early on in this conversation, as adults, we forget that. We hit, just like you said, that barrier, that wall, and we say, I've suffered enough, I've gone through enough, I'm already healed, and we proclaim our healing versus really just going through the process of it. And just like I had a previous conversation, I believe that was on Thursday, and talking about this process, you know, allowing yourself to process the feelings, feel the feelings. And when you wrote me, and even now when you talked about the different processes that you have adults to go through so that they can be able to deal with this emotional weight and the social anxiety, you said the memoir writing, the mindfulness art practices, and the theater practices, the storytelling. These are all elements that we forget to do. We forget to play. And I think a lot of times too, if you work in elementary school, you're already doing art projects and you're doing this. And so you feel like you're playing. But I've learned, because I used to feel like that too. Then I did homeschooling because we have 10 kiddos and I homeschool them. And I realized teaching art is sometimes extremely stressful, and it's not the same
as experience.
Like working, you know, it's not the same like I'm just working on my own art piece.
Exactly.
I'm just doing my own painting. I'm making my own, you know, wire doll craft. Because then I could just channel it in. Whereas when you're over someone and you're like, you know, trying to let them know, you know, blend this together. Oh, we had a spill. Oh, we got to clean this up.
You're
It's different. And facilitating. It is highly stressful, and you don't really get the play time in like your mind is telling you. Your mind is telling you, okay, we played, we're done. Let's go back in adult mode. No, you didn't.
And it's crazy that you say that, because that's something that I felt when I was in the classroom. I had a conversation, I think it was a family member years ago, and they were saying, as a theater teacher, they were like, oh my gosh, that must be so amazing. You get to act all the time. You get to direct all the time. You get to blah, 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 blah all the time. And I'm like, okay, it's different. It's way different. So yes, while 9 hours out of my day, I am immersed in theater as a teacher versus being immersed in it as an artist and immersed in
Oh,
it as, you know, experiencing it from a different perspective. I think you're absolutely right. It's two different things. And that's not saying that teaching it and facilitating it is a lower form of experiencing it. I'm not saying that at all. It's just different.
it's
It is not the same thing.
different.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very different. Just like I imagine from a student's perspective, regardless if they're an adult or a child,
Mm-hmm.
if they're doing the art piece or the artwork, for them, they have in their mind and their imagination, they can visualize what they're going to do or how they're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing for us. When we're doing ours, we have in our mind how to do it compared to being the one who has to make sure that, stuff's not falling over. Or if you have students who are coming to you and they go, I don't know how to draw this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to write this.
Mm-hmm.
I need help with this. Or I don't know what to put on here. And they've been sitting there for 20 minutes
Mm-hmm.
with a blank sheet. Or
yeah.
I don't know what to write right here. And so then you have to kind of, let them know, like, well, you like guitar
Mm-hmm.
and you like this and you like, and now you're having to jog their memory.
Yeah.
And so it uses your creative energy in a different kind of way to where, like you said, you're not really able to put your artistry at test. It doesn't mean that you're not enjoying the process, but you're not really able to channel your emotional energies into creating.
Absolutely. I'm sorry. My lighting, I feel like my lighting is way off.
Oh, you're fine.
Like you can see this much of me and everything
else
is
no,
dark.
No, I see all of you. Actually, I see all of you.
Okay.
All right, but yes,
okay,
you're
good.
fine. You're fine. So we have talked about S.E.L. and how it is a social emotional learning tactic. What benefits and what changes have you seen adults experience through S.E.L?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a different sort of approach when you're talking about adult S.E.L versus student S.E.L. I'll start with that first.
Okay.
So when you're talking about when you're talking about S.E.L period, really you're talking about 5 different categories. You're talking about self-awareness, you're talking about self-management, you're talking about social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Those are the 5 tenets, if you will, of social emotional learning. So as an adult, we have cultivated a lot of these things. My work with educators specifically deals with self-management, meaning that is that whole emotional piece, that emotional wellness piece. We don't really talk a whole lot about responsible decision-making because they are adults, and a lot of times that's outside of the work that I do. But we also talk about relationships, relationships with their students, relationship with their colleagues, relationships inside with the families and inside of the schools. And so in working with that and in clarifying some of the places where they're struggling a little bit, I'm finding that teachers are refining or reigniting their joy in the classroom. So a lot of the educators that come to me are worn out. They use the blanket term burnout, and they don't know what to do with it. Technically, they can't do anything with it. Let me be very clear. Burnout is a systemic problem. Burnout is a systemic problem. Burnout means that somewhere along the line, the system has broken down. Somewhere along the lines, whether it is a larger school district, and I'm speaking specifically about education now. Obviously, other jobs experience burnout, but education. Somewhere along the line, something has broken down to where the amount of work that each teacher is feeling is out of balance. Okay, something has happened. Now, that may be also a personal system, like your systems, your processes. Something is out of whack. Regardless, it is a systemic problem. Okay, when we're talking about compassion fatigue and secondary trauma, those aren't necessarily systemic problems, and those are things that you can put things in place to heal from. So a lot of times we hear, if principals just cut down on meetings, then the burnout will go away. It would help. But cutting meetings is not going to help compassion fatigue. It's not going to help secondary trauma, you know?
True.
And so when we use this blanket term, which I go back to what I said before, we have to know exactly what we're feeling. We have to put a name to what it is that we're going through. And in order to do that, we have to reflect. We have to creatively reflect. And that's, again, where the writing comes from. So what I find is that a lot of educators, once they go through this creative writing, creative reflection process, they start seeing patterns in their work. They start seeing patterns in how they approach young people and how they approach the classroom and how they approach their work in general. And so now we can start breaking harmful practices once we see it. But if we just say, oh, I'm just so burnt out and I just wish meetings would just be shorter. But maybe that's not exactly what you're feeling. Maybe you're feeling something else. And so again, in the long, answering your question in a long way, the educators who work with me generally find that they're able to stop this hamster wheel and get back to why they started teaching in the first place.
I'm making notes. I'm making notes. I am. And I already know I'm going to, and I advise anyone listening to this right now, listen, but then go back to replay and listen to this again. Rewind it all and listen to it again, but with the paper and pen, because you are throwing out some jewels, some gems, some nuggets, and I'm writing down as much as I can, but I know I'm going to have to listen to this again because you are talking to my heart right now as far as being a former educator myself and still being a home-based educator.
I'm going to say this.
It's to my heart.
Being a parent, because a lot of the work that I do also translates to being a parent, being a caregiver, period. Of course, my particular niche is education, and that's where I put all my work. But I'm also a parent, and a lot of things that I talk about, I can see happening in my home and with my children are grown now, but during the process of when I was dealing with compassion fatigue, when I was dealing with burnout as well, how that affected me as a parent, how it affected me as a partner, as a wife, as a friend, as a child, as a daughter. And so it's really, really important that we look at where we are emotionally. Again, whether you are a teacher, whether you are a school leader, whether you don't even work in the school space, it's so important to really sit down and assess at any given moment where you are and how you can get to where you want to be. The type of person that you want to be, the type of mom, the type of parent, type of father, the type of partner. So, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like I said, this is very enlightening for me. I love the fact of being when you talked about systemic. I really thought of someone, an educator, a teacher, male or female, doesn't really matter. Trying, because we're in the inside, so you see where the breakdown is, and then you call yourself trying to be like Hercules or like Samson and hold down, just hold the whole weight of the school and the whole school system itself. And so when you said that, it made me think, okay, you really have to sit down with yourself or with someone, like you, someone as lovely as you, and sit down in order to find out, is this the system? Is this systemic? Is this bigger than me? Or is this an individual problem? Because if it's an individual issue, like you said, with the compassion fatigue, secondary trauma, not only can I label it, but then I can also be able to assess it different. Because if it's just me, now I've gone from having to hold the whole nation to now just being on my block.
Yes.
And now just having to deal with what's in my home being myself, what's going on with me mentally, spiritually, psychologically, and then, intercepting those thought patterns and, adding in that creative outlet so that I can channel it and release it and then be able to have a healthier routine. But if it's systemic and it's bigger than me, then I can't do it by myself. I'm going to need other teachers to come with me. I'm going to need, the union is the parents. Yes. Oh my, good things and bad things.
And
I've had
true.
some good experiences. And I've had experiences where you got to buy the pizza for them to come in for their kids, and then they still may not come in. And then those kids look so sad. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It's a
but if you
large
get the
problem.
parents, if you get the parents, then
Yeah.
you know that's way better for whatever you're trying to appeal
Oh my
or
gosh.
communicate.
Right
But
now,
you have to know which one.
yeah, exactly. And not to take the conversation in a different way,
Oh,
because I really don't. I like where we're going. Um, there's a divide that is happening right now between parents and the school, between parents and teachers. And I'm seeing this gap widen by the day, almost, it seems. Um, and but at the end of the day, we all want the same things. We want healthy, um, educated, happy children. Period.
yes.
Period. I don't know any parent who does not want that. I don't know who any educator who does not want that. And so it's becoming more of a challenge to get on the same page, but it's also becoming more imperative that we get on the same page with the mental wellness issues that a lot of our students are starting to face.
Yes, yes, yes. And when we talk about the pandemic, just in case, because some people may go, well, kids were at home, what was the real big deal? The pandemic had a lot of different issues for children, at least from me being on the outside in, and that, of course, yeah, they couldn't see their friends, and yeah, they couldn't see their teachers, and a lot of them lost that stability because a lot of kids need routine. I get up at this time, I do this, I rush in there to get to school, and I go here, I go here. But they're used to it. So now my pattern has been thrown off. And then for students who have food scarcity, that became an issue. For parents that lost their jobs, that became an issue, because you could have a parent that could afford the bills but was making it paycheck to paycheck. And then once they lost their job and they didn't, we talk about community, we talk about the divide within the schools. Well, there's a divide in family. And so not all families are willing to help each other. Not all families have the money or
Yeah.
resources
Yes.
to help each other or
Right.
to put a house. So we got 10 kiddos. So that's a lot of kids, if
Yeah.
anything would have happened, where we would have had to find someone to help us. And so now you've got kids that may have gotten separated, where their siblings are living over here and they're over here.
Yeah.
The pandemic really did hurt working class
Yeah.
families
It did.
in ways that a lot of families are still trying to recover from. And then we have these weather issues coming up and homes being crushed by tornadoes and flooding, and that doesn't help either. So then you, as an educator who's all full of compassion and love, who wants to save the world and be another Mother Teresa in a certain form, says, how can I help? What can I do? Because you can't, your hands are tied. Now this is all in your mind.
Well, I will say this. One of the first things that I tell educators, I do professional developments and go to schools all across the country. One of the first things that's in my presentation is you're not a superhero, and period. Your heart may want you to be a superhero and to help everyone. You cannot, because superheroes have this ability to rush into a burning building without any thought of themselves, without any thought of their families. They have this armor, right? That can save them, and we don't. We don't. And so if we are not able to really connect with our emotional wealth, if we are not able to be well, then there's no help for the children.
That's true.
If we can't say, I need to put myself first for a second. I need to make sure I'm okay. Then there's going to be so many young people that are going to not have the benefit. And I also say this, I will also say this as well, because I think in saying that, the what it can come off sometimes as is take care of yourself so that you can take care of young people.
Yes.
I disagree with that. Take care
Yes.
of yourself because you deserve to be taken care of.
Ooh.
Take care of yourself because you are a whole human and you don't exist to be a caregiver. Take care of yourself first. And then, because God has put this in you, God has put this spirit in you, and God has put this charge on you, now I can go out and do what I've been called to do. So it's not selfish to say, I need a second to take care of me. I need to make sure I'm okay before I rush in and try to help as many children as I possibly can.
Oh, you kind of hit me hard right there. I think that we all battle with work, you know, and that's part of the reason why I just had a conversation with a sis of mine yesterday, as far as feeling an imposter, having that imposter syndrome. And I think that the majority of us who are extremely compassionate and whose mind doesn't shut off, and you're up at night trying to figure out, did you say the right words? Did you offend anyone? Did you do this right? Did I remember to say this? You know? And you're up at night and you're up in the morning and you already got a little headache because you're thinking too much. We suffer not just from imposter syndrome, but also from not feeling worthy enough. And really, and especially, you know, being like you said, being a parent, and not just being a mom, but being a dad. You know, we put a lot of emphasis on being a mom, but I'm very blessed to have a partnership with my husband where we communicate our emotions and we talk. And so, you know, I hear his side of things and where he's at and how he feels about things and the weight that's on him. So being a parent, period, can really have you, thank you so much, I appreciate it, but can really have you in a position, of course, of feeling the fatigue, the compassion fatigue. Feeling that secondary trauma, feeling what the just flat umbrella term of burnout, but also forgetting that you're worthy. Because I feed into the same hype that you said at first, you know, hey, get yourself well, and then you can be able to help your students, help your kids. You'll be there. You'll be 100. But you're right. We didn't get put down on the planet just to be caregivers.
No. You are
There's so much more in us.
You are a whole human that deserves to be supported and deserves wellness and deserves happiness and joy and when we approach things from that space, how much more effective are we? You know, when we approach things from a space of burnout and a space of emotional unrest, we're not really helping anyone. If anything, we're probably bleeding all over everybody.
Gosh.
You know?
Woo.
So it's important that we do that. It's
important. That was just a deep visual. So very true.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I tell you, I got into play therapy because I explained to you briefly my background with, you know, I did teaching in undergrad. I worked in daycares and did, and that's another similarity we have as far as just like from the creative aspect of theater and storytelling. And those are just things that I did, and I enjoy those things, but it's not so much who I am. And I believe in having my children and their diverse personalities. It's really opened me up to question who I am more, to really seek out my why. And the play therapy aspect, you know, because, you know, you learn about, you know, play therapy when you're in undergraduate, you know, psychology courses and so forth. EJ and so forth, you know, you learn about all these things, and it just really didn't stick with me. I'll be very honest with you. I was like, okay, let me just learn it, get done with it. And I graduated with psychology, but it's like, just to get it, memorize it, memorize test. And then having my kids, and it was the pandemic actually that kind of sparked it. We had already been watching At My Froggy Stuff, which is a shout out to her because she has amazing content on YouTube. And we were watching, and she has dioramas, and she works with dolls, and she was working with her daughter who is now older now, but at the time she was younger. And my kids were like, let's do this. And I really didn't have the time because being an indie author at that particular time, I was trying to you know, get my books sold. So I was, you know, going out there doing the book tours. The book signings. But then the pandemic hit, so there was a standstill, and I said, let's do it. Let's post it on Instagram. And just plain in Barbie opened up this whole doll community. And from there, we just started, we took a page I wasn't using, which was my Sacred Para page, and we started you know, our own story together, and I would make the poses and they're giving me the dialogue. But then it started feeling so cathartic for me that there was this underlying story on the inside of me and the unconscious of me that was coming out, to where I will admit I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take the page over. So it's now my page, but I still, you know, we still have our playtime together. Now my three girls are enjoying playing together, which was something I didn't have because I was the only child. So I enjoy just watching them be able to have their time together as well. But it came from them. Like, this page would not exist without their emphasizing to do something and going to dad and being like, I really want to get, can you get mom to help us sew Barbie clothes? Because it wouldn't have came about. So in doing that and realizing how much I did need to play and how much I needed to reconnect with myself and reconnect with even my childhood best friend, who I no longer have connection with because she got caught up into the world, and pretty much none of us know where she's at anymore. But by having the dolls have helped me to reconnect even with her and what those memories were like. And I've met so many different amazing artists and people, and we connected through our storylines. We'll have similar storylines, and it's like, wow, you're dealing with that? I have gone through that. That's what so play. It is so important, and we neglect it in our adulthood. So when you do this with teachers who are stressed and burnt out and tired and fatigued and going through trauma and then having to relive their own trauma, it's needed. It is so needed, and we tell ourselves that it's not.
It is. So one of the things that we I'm sorry, friend is
oh, you're fine.
One of the things that we talk about in our sessions is, especially in the earlier sessions, is what does play look like for you? Because there's so
that was
many
one of my
different
questions.
ways.
Go ahead, come on. Yes, talk to me.
So because there's so many different ways to play, and there's so well, the very first question is, when you think of play, what do you think of? And then, of course, what comes up is like children and hopscotch and all these other things. And then I'm like, okay, then what does play really mean for you? And how do you play in your life right now? For the most part, that's where they get stuck. And it's like pencils stop moving and they're like, I don't know. And so we spend a long time just kind of brainstorming all the different ways that we can play. And we actually do a lot of times play as adults. We just don't look at it in that way. And so one of the first assignments I asked them to do is to reconnect to something that they enjoyed doing as a child. So did you enjoy playing kickball? Did you enjoy chalk, like sidewalk chalk?
Yes.
Did you enjoy jacks? I think I'm kind of aging myself now, but the game jacks with the ball and the little jacks.
And I just want to say, you do not look old enough to have adult children. I do want to say.
Oh my gosh, yes. Thank you. But yes, my oldest is 23. So my youngest is 23. No,
not at all. Not at all. So go ahead and age yourself. Other people are like, that 1996 with Jack.
That's different.
I know, it's a little bit further back, but it's okay.
A little bit further back.
You don't look that at all. So
Thank you. But yeah, we talk about that, and then the assignment is whatever that is. But between now and we meet again, I want you to do that.
Yeah.
Saturday morning, and then of course the question always comes up. I don't have time. You do have time, and then we have to have conversations about mindset around time. And what that looks like. But it's so crazy what comes up. And then the next time we meet, their faces, it's just like a light has come off a light goes on when we start talking about what they did for play. And they were like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, well, how did you feel when you were doing it? Or how did you feel afterwards? Oh my gosh, I didn't think once about the stress of the job. I didn't, lesson plans, I didn't even worry about that. I was happy. I was smiling. My kids came out and played with me. One person was like, my neighbor came over and we were playing outside. And,
wow.
and then it's like, okay, so let's really talk about what does that say to you? And how can we incorporate a doable routine?
Yes.
Not necessarily every day you're outside in the backyard. If you can, great, because that's amazing. But truthfully, every day you can't. So does that mean that maybe you join a kickball league in your area once a week? Maybe
Dinner
does
time
that
is carved out.
maybe does
Yes.
that say once a month you organize all your friends on a Saturday, just once a month, all your friends, maybe even your teacher colleagues, and we go out and we play kickball, or we go out and we do X, Y, and Z. Is it connecting with the resources in your neighborhood? Maybe you don't know that there's a doll club in your neighborhood. Maybe you don't know that there's a sewing club, or there's whatever. There's so many different ways to connect to the play in you. And so anyway, that's a
I
whole other
love that. I
conversation.
love that. I love that. I spoke to someone before and they were like, I just don't have the time for my dolls anymore. This was a while back, and they were feeling a little bit, sad about not being able to have their dolls. And I was like, you know what? If you can sometimes just get that
Mm-hmm.
doll out and just dress the doll, get the hair,
Yeah.
redone, and just have the doll maybe sitting on your desk, sitting
Yeah.
on your bed with you, whatever the case is, you still stay in that playful mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I'm not able to do the pictures, do the dioramas, do the
Mm-hmm.
story, and do all this
Mm-hmm.
setup, because we're adults,
Yeah.
and things do happen, and by the
Yeah.
time that your day ends, you may be too tired to do all that. Just being able to connect, to
Absolutely.
physically connect, and be like, you know what, I'm grooming my doll, I'm changing the clothes, and I'm
Yeah.
staying in that play mindset.
Yeah.
And it's so important.
I will also say, again, with that time mindset, are there things that you can incorporate in your physical space that bring you joy and that make you smile? So when you said, just take your doll out and sit it on your thing. And the reason I brought this up is this was something that my husband brought me a long time ago, and it has very little to do with play, but it makes me laugh every time that I see it and that I play with it. And I was going through a really stressful time. I have this thing about goats, specifically screaming goats. And so he bought this little thing. So our offices share a wall. And so whenever he hears this thing go off, he knows that I'm having a stressful day and that I just need a screaming goat in my life. And I always end up chuckling. There's always a bit of levity that happens, that I take a second and I'm like, okay, it is not that bad. So it doesn't even have to be, like you said, where you're spending 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes on play. Again, if you can, lovely. It can literally just be surrounding yourself and being intentional about what's in your space, what's on your desk, what's in the windowsill of your kitchen. If you don't like washing dishes, what do you put there that, can brighten your day and make,
I agree with that. Yeah. I agree with that. My mother was with a gentleman for multiple years, and I'm thinking of this with the screaming goat. And you said that after you do that and you release, you hear your goat scream, and just let you know it's not that bad. The gentleman that was in her life, and I was very young, he said something to me, because I used to have worry issues. I used to be a little worrywart as a kid, and I was worried about HIV. I was worried about homelessness. I always was just worried. And people used to give me those little worry war dolls that you could put underneath your pillow.
Yes, I remember those.
They're like, put your worries in there, put underneath your pillow. And if it's gone, it took your worries. And I used to really believe it. And I'm not saying anything against it. It helped me. So, but he told me, he said, you've got to look up in the sky. And it was like late at night. Look up at the sky. He said, see the stars. And I still think about this. He said, you see all the stars? I was like, yeah. He said, those are your problems. And he was like, are your problems bigger than the sky, or are they smaller? And I was like, those are smaller. And he's like, exactly. So, and it's hard when you're going through a whole lot and you're feeling consumed by your issues, and you're like, how am I going to get this paid? How am I going to do this? How is this going to work? oh, how's this kid going to learn this? Whatever the case is. If you've been working with the kid for a while and you tried all different kind of tactics on just learning how to read and it worked for the other kids, but yet the other resources that you use aren't working and you're trying to figure out how do they learn? Because we all learn different.
Right.
Some are auditory, some are kinetic, some are this. So they all learn different. Do you learn better if it's in musical? But then if it's in music, the reality is when you get into college and high school, they're not going to give you this resource in music. So you still got to learn it the dull way. And so that can be extremely stressful, but you got to have those moments like with the screaming goat or looking up in the sky and being like, my problems are those little tiny stars and the sky is so much bigger. And this is going to be resolved. There's going to be a resolution to it, but it's not always that easy to do when you're in the moment. Yeah. But like you said, taking that step back, it helps.
Yeah. Perspective. Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. Thank you. I'm gonna take that with me.
Please. Please do. He was that kind of gentleman where I know that he would gladly have given off that information to anyone, so I share it with you. But before we end this, I do have a couple of things I want to say. One, I would like to ask you, your solo show, is that available on YouTube?
It's not. So, yeah, no, it's not. I have not put it out as a recording yet for like the general public to see. The last time I actually performed it for the general public was right before the lockdown, right before we went into lockdown. Sorry. Okay.
Oh, you're fine.
An email came through, an important email. Okay. Anyway, it'll be there when we finish.
Okay, well, we're almost done.
Yeah, no worries. Almost. So the last time I did that was 2020. Now it's a part of the social, a part of the professional development. So I'll go around with schools. I tour it to schools. So that's that. Now that's not saying that it won't be. I'm looking at moving towards theaters now that have educational components, so that it could be for the general public. Because the last time I did it, people who weren't teachers got a lot out of it as well. So, because we talk about imposter syndrome, we talk about just the weight of the world. And when you said imposter syndrome, I have a book called My Book of Dopeness. It's a affirmation journal, and because that is also something that I have dealt with previously. This idea of not being enough, not doing enough. But anyway, so there's that.
Now, is this the affirmation journal that it's made by you? You create. Oh, okay. Okay, now. I'm going to put this in the caption.
All right, hold on.
My Book of Dopeness. This is the affirmation journal. And we got it. Oh, no, nice.
It's got a bad word in it, so I don't know.
Oh, no, you're fine. You are fine. We're all adults. I love this. Okay, now let me get what is your pseudonym or your author name?
Isis. Yeah, but I'll send you the link.
Please do, because I want to get this. And actually, I was going to ask you towards the end of this conversation if I could please get your P.O. box, if you could DM me your P.O. box, because I want to send this to you. This is the Adult Play Therapy Devotional.
Let's do a book swap.
Okay.
I'll send it out. Yes, let's do a book swap.
Let's do a book swap then. That would be great. Although I really want to make sure that I pay you for your book because you put your time into it. But I just wanted to get this in your hand so I could get your feedback, because this is your field. And I was like, wow, I'm so glad we had this conversation. Thank you for your yes. Thank you for your yes. I appreciate it. I want to say this last thing, and this is why I bring up earlier about God being a gentleman and just how he works. It's amazing to me that out of your hurt of losing 5 students, and then on your, when you said that the second student had departed, that's when this mission was driven into your heart. And one of the things that I have learned and continue to learn is how God will use our pain and put purpose to it. And I'm really thankful for what you're doing, because I'm telling you, just our conversation alone has had such a positive impact on me. And that's just us conversating virtually. So I can only imagine what adults and students are experiencing when they're in the room with you one-on-one, and they're, having that direct conversation with you, and the passion that you have in what you're doing. So I just want to continue to let you know that I'm interceding in prayer for what you're doing, because this is needed. We need to know about reconnecting with ourselves. We can reconnecting with our why. Teachers, we are the glue to the classroom. We are that middleman, or that bridge between the system and the kids. And there is a lot of work on teachers. And some people may not see it. If you're a parent and you never taught, or, you are a student and you've never taught, some of them will see it, some of them won't, but you've got to get the curriculum taught in a certain amount of time. And you're getting graded by the system. And if you don't get that curriculum done, and it doesn't matter who received the information, understood it, just flunk them. We got to keep moving on. And in your heart, you don't want to just flunk them. You want them to master the information. You want them to understand it, which means that if we just get through half of the book, then we just get through half of the book. But the school system doesn't understand that. They want the whole book read. And every year they increase the amount of books. And nowadays, of course, they have workbooks. They don't even do textbooks. I could rant about this, but you have a duty and a mission and a ministry that I commend you for, and that like I said, I'm going to be holding you in prayer, because it's something that is needed. When a teacher comes back into the classroom and she's whole, and she or he understands their why, and they're able to say, you know what, I can only do so much with the system, but everything that I can do is with me as an individual, I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. But then when you said, like I said, it impacted me so much about understanding your worth. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, that's something that now I don't just have to be a whole person in the classroom and go back home shattered and fragmented, because I can carry my wholeness home. Right. If I just feel like a caregiver, I'm going to go to you and I can be as whole as possible, but then go in my own secret place and be in a cave. But when I can understand my worth, sis, like you just opened up my own eyes for myself. And I thank you for that, because I can understand my worth. I can then go back home feeling worthy to be loved, feeling worthy to, regardless if I'm single or if I'm married or I got kids, I can feel worthy of doing what needs to be done, and knowing, like, if I need to take that bath, and I know if I go to the bathroom, I understand, but I need to take a soak and I need to just relax. Yeah. And I can do that because I feel like I'm worthy of that. I'm worthy of that 15 minutes in the tub versus a 3-minute shower.
Yes. And the world is not going to stop. The world isn't going to crash because of it. Oh. The world is not going to crash because of it. If anything, the world is going to be beautiful, more beautiful because of it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, we got to stay in contact. We got to stay in contact. Like you said, we're going to do a book swap. We have got to stay in contact. This was so, just revigorating for me. Like I said, being in that position of being a teacher and still being a home educator. And surprisingly, even though my kids, they've never stepped foot into a school. My oldest went to daycare when he was younger, but some of the same circumstances and issues and pulling that I wanted out of my students, I still am in that same position with my kids. Yeah. So I learned, I was like, wow, I thought there was going to be like this huge difference, but kids are kids.
Kids are kids. Kids are kids. Kids are kids.
Beautiful, loving, social bugs and creative energy.
Kids are kids.
And so you still have, and they still learn differently.
Yes.
Some learn through touching, some learn through just reading it, some have to see the visuals, some have to, each one of them still learn differently. And this resource worked for this one, but it didn't work for that one.
Nope.
So the stress of teaching is still real and can still bring up childhood trauma or insecurities or shyness that you dealt with that you didn't think that you would.
Absolutely.
Oh, this is so needed. Like I said, we are definitely going to have another conversation. Please send me your link, because I want people to buy this book, my book of dopeness, affirmation journal. You're over here giving us the confidence, just like sparking our confidence and being whole in our humanness. And so I'm excited for the work that you're doing. And do you have because you said that you travel to different schools. Is this
Yes.
something that other people can attend, or is this just for the
Well,
staff
it's
and
just for this.
students?
It's honestly just for the staff. So if there's anyone who is listening, who is an educator, um, whether they are school based or maybe they are district based or anything like that, I'd love to talk with you. I know right now there is a huge need to support our educators. There's a mass exodus that's happening that does not necessarily have to happen. And I'd love to offer the resources that I have, um, and the help to help you stop that leak that is happening, to help you hold on to some of those rock star teachers who just really, really, really need some support.
Well, I for one, like I said, I do know some teachers myself, you know, from the ones I knew growing up are pretty much retired. I do know of one that is still teaching. I'm going to forward your name to her as well.
Please do. I
And
have
just,
an
you know,
event coming up for educators.
really,
Yes, I have an event coming up. It's called the Right to Heal Workshop. It's a 2-day workshop. And in that, it's super fun. It's over a weekend, the last weekend in April. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be digging into our stories. We're going to be doing some mindfulness journaling, some mindfulness doodling, some Zentangle. There's going to be a DJ, and just digging into making a practice of our of how to support our emotional wellness. And then for a VIP, the VIP is 2-day. General admission is 1. On the VIP day, we look at how you can take your story to increase impact. So how can you take your teaching story, the journey that you've gone through, and really create something that will empower young people, empower fellow educators, and really impact the world. So we talk about that.
Yes. Well, I'm going to put that information in the caption as well. I thank you again for your guest and for allowing me to have this sacred time with you. I appreciate you so very much.
Thank you for reaching out. This has been amazing.
Yes, it has. It has. I feel it too. Thank you. And after this conversation, like I said, I'm going to forward you my information so we can do the book swap. But I'm looking forward to. I love affirmations. It's something that we talk to our kids about and have them, you know, repeat. Some of them do, some of them don't. But I've seen them improve within their psychological stance off of it, and even with myself, because affirmations.
The cool thing about this journal, there's an area for obviously actual affirmations to repeat, but the whole concept of this journal is on days when we are at our lowest and we don't necessarily see the worth, or we don't think that we're good enough, or we don't think that we are doing enough. This is a place where you can log the things that you're doing well. These are the things that on those days that you are like, I knocked this out the park. I just got the kids out the house. Everybody was fed. I'm feeling great. This is a place where you can log this. And so on those days when you're feeling like I am not being the best parent I can be, or I'm failing at this parenting thing, or I'm failing at this life thing or teaching thing or whatever, you can go back and in your own words, nah, that's not the case. I'm dope. I've done some dope things in my own words. And so you're not relying on somebody else's opinions on what you're doing. Because a lot of times that was me. I would rely on other people saying, oh, you're doing great, or you're this is awesome. I need to know that in order for it to sink in. I needed to know that in order for it to really be real. And so this book of dopeness is a place where I can go and say, no, I'm proud of this thing. I remember this. I remember how I felt in this. And I have done hard things before, and daggone it, I can do it again.
Yes.
And so that's what
it's so awesome that we're having this conversation, because like I said, just yesterday spoke to a sister of mine. We were also talking about mom guilt, which is so very real. And I shared with her, I said, sometimes I feel that, and it's true, I do. I feel that I pull from my husband too much because he's a gifted encourager. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he can encourage a rock to get legs and run. Like, he is just, that's his gift. He's just gifted in encouraging you and seeing your potential and being like you can do it. You've done it before. Just like you said,
Yes.
you've done it before. You've got it. I mean,
Yes.
just anything. So he'll make you feel like you can jump up on a stage with a guitar and do a Kiss song. Perfect. Yeah, right.
How
But he'll
powerful is
make you
that?
feel like it. That's how much he can empower you. But I find like I pull from him, which isn't a bad
Not
thing.
bad.
But my question becomes, do I pull from you too much? Am I filling your cup up
Mm-hmm.
in the same way that you fill mine up?
Mm-hmm.
And so I do believe that in a partnership, you do need to pull from each other and encourage each other.
Of
It's
course.
so very important. But you said something so powerful. You need to be able to read your own words. You need to be able to receive your own words for
How much
yourself as
more
well.
powerful would it be if you could say, no, I can do that? Not having to wait for somebody else. And I agree. Absolutely. My husband's the same way. Like, I will be in a corner somewhere and he's like, you better hold your head up. You're amazing. You're the best. and that's needed, and that's wonderful, and it's beautiful. But that's also having to rely on someone else. I found myself relying on that to validate me. How powerful is it when that validation comes from inside? On those days when you are, because those days will come where you're just low. How powerful is it when your words could be that lights you up, that picks you up? How powerful is that? And then other people can add to that. But on the inside, I already know. On the inside, I already know exactly who I am. Exactly who I am and how powerful I am. So that's what this is about.
Yes. So I'm excited. We're going to do this book swap, and we're going to give you the information. I'm going to write everything down in the comments or in the caption. So I'll write your event as well. And any links or anything like that, just send it to me so I can also put that in the caption as well.
Awesome.
I've enjoyed our time together.
Me too.
I really,
Me too.
really have.
All right. Well, I do have to
All
go
right.
there. I'm starting to get
You're
messages all
fine.
over
You're
the
fine.
place.
I appreciate you. Happy Sunday. You have a good
Yes,
day.
happy Palm Sunday.
You too.
All right, see
Bye,
ya.
sis. You too.